Hi, I'm Dr Loz, and this is the Good People Podcast.
It's a tip of the cap, it's a pat on the back, it's a smile from ear to ear. They're the good people from round here.
Yes, welcome to another episode of the Good People Podcast. My name is Andy from In Other Good News, and in this show I get to talk to some of the best humans around and sometimes some of the smartest humans around. In this case, I have Dr Loz from Science Play Kids. Lorien Parker, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I think that's the first time I've ever said your real name.
Yes, doesn't happen. My Dr Loz is my alias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually said your real name.
Lorien.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. You are someone who has created a thing called Science Play Kids. That is your current invention.
Yes.
I will call it an invention because
like
we're
that.
talking science
Yes,
today.
yes.
Do you love science?
I love science.
How much do you love
So
science?
much. I could shout, but I'm not going to do that. Very, very much.
And so you've got a program called Science Play Kids. And it's where you teach kids how to do things with STEM learning.
Yes.
Now, that's kind of what you're doing now. But what I want to do before we talk about what you're doing now is I want to tell people a little bit about your history just so they know what they're dealing with here. You have a PhD in biochemistry.
I do.
That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
You have launched things into space.
Yes.
I really want to talk about this.
Cool.
I haven't launched anything into space. I've tried.
Unlucky. Like a lemon gun or something.
Yeah, I probably can't talk about it.
Things you've tried to launch. Bottle rockets.
Yeah. And also, you were listed on the Australian Financial Review as in the top 100 most influential women.
Thank you. Yes, I was.
That's ridiculous.
Some amazing women there, but yes.
Well, yes.
Yes.
The most amazing women.
Yes.
Well, the most influential.
Trying to be, anyway.
Yeah.
Trying to make some change.
Yes. You're trying to make change, definitely, and we're going to cover that in a minute. Firstly, though, you launch things into space.
Yes.
Can you tell me about launching things into space?
I can tell you what I know.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I was doing medical research, which I loved, I worked with a group called JAXA, which is the Japanese version of NASA, and chucked some stuff in a rocket and sent it up onto the International Space Station, which is very cool. And up there, it's different from down here. And so then it stayed up there for 3 months and the experiment came back and we got to look at it and it was very different from what we see here normally.
Space is
ace.
Space. The experiments you do in space work differently to experiments you do on Earth.
Yes, because on Earth we have vibrations, we have convection, we have gravity, we have all that kind of stuff. So when we essentially grow things or make things here, there's a lot of things that interrupt that process, whereas in space it's nice and smooth and it all forms much more neatly, much more uniform.
Right.
So you get better information from that.
Less other things acting upon.
Yes, correct.
And creating different results.
Yes.
I find this amazing, and I like how you just throw away, we chuck some stuff up into space. Just chuck it in a rocket.
Happens all the time. I don't know. That's it, I don't know. I would like to tell you how often rockets go up with stuff. But the International Space Station is a pretty rad place. And there is experiments from all around the world happening all the time.
In the space
Anything
station.
you can imagine they're doing up there. Yeah, it's very cool.
You said that they sent a dog up once.
Let's not talk about animals in space. Yes. I think that we're aiming to be in space very soon, living there.
Right.
That's
Who's we?
One of the humans.
Humans are aiming to live in
animals,
space.
because we are.
Isn't it incredibly volatile and hard on the human body living in space?
Yes. And so I think they're working on all of that sort of stuff now. I don't think I would actually like to go. I know I said before I wish I could have gone to, but I don't know.
Not so sure now.
No.
will keep sending up the care packages.
Yes.
And the letters from the loved ones.
They do. I actually just saw a video in the International Space Station. One of the space guys dressed up as a gorilla and like popped out of a box and scared the other astronauts up there like as a prank. So they must also send up some pointless stuff because you need to have a bit of fun up there,
have
right?
some fun. While you're in space and also facilitating Dr. Loz's science experiments.
Thank you very much.
So you studied science. You did a science degree.
Yes.
What was your science degree?
Science. There you go.
Of
Science
course.
degree of science.
Was that to help you find the course? It was just called exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's good. It helps. You just go to S when you're going through the index.
Yeah.
Yes, science degree, did a bit of biochem, bit of genetics, and then found this really cool thing I liked called X-ray crystallography, which is then what I did for 12 years after.
And that's what you sent into space, right?
Yes.
You send up the crystallography
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once I finished my degree, I did my PhD on cancer chemotherapy drug design.
Right.
So that's that was 12 years of that stuff. I love it.
You were doing
Fascinating.
research. You were doing research into treatments for cancer treatments.
Yes, because at the moment, most cancer treatments cause a lot of side effects and are not as successful as they should be because our human body is pretty amazing and it tries to fight the medicine you give it because it says that shouldn't be in here. Let me get rid of that for you.
Yep.
And so you have to give more medicine because the body does that. And when you add more and more and more, then you get all the side effects as well.
Yeah.
So we were trying to find a way to give less, but also for it to be more specific and directed to where it was meant to go.
Do you need negotiators to go in and help negotiate with the body
Yeah, well, that's what we were doing.
to help accept the medicine?
Yeah. So we were getting these little negotiators, attaching them to the medicine, sending them in together so they could like power the bodies.
Yeah.
Well, actually take them and say, look over here while I send my medicine in to do the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Distractors.
That's amazing. And so you did a PhD.
So actually, yes, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your PhD in biochemistry
Yes.
focused on
That. Yes.
And then after your PhD, which we call
Postdoc.
you were doing more research.
Yes.
And then that came to a conclusion based around your child raising.
Having children. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
You
it's
have to make a
difficult,
choice.
isn't it, in academia? Or
very.
it's getting better, but it's
Slowly.
difficult to continue that level of academic work.
Yes. And have children.
And have children.
You could
Why?
make a choice because you could choose, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have to choose my children or I have to choose my research or my work. You can't. It's very hard to have both. So we lose a lot of amazing women around that age because you either have to do 6 days worth of work in, 3 days or
Yeah.
So I had to.
And at a quick calculation, those two periods are very connected, aren't they? So like at the point where you've done enough to become postdoc, PhD.
Yes, that's the time.
It's also you
The age.
often have the children's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that made it hard for you to continue with your academic research.
Yes.
But that led to other things.
It did.
And
It also made yes.
Yeah, and so you created Science Play Kids, but what was the impetus for wanting to create Science Play Kids?
I think it was having the children and saying, gosh, I hope that they love science as much as me. How can I have all these science conversations with my kids? And then saying, don't worry, at school they'll do that.
Yep.
And then sort of talking to friends with kids at school and going, at school they don't do that.
They don't do that.
How can I help my kids get that experience at school? What needs to change for that to happen?
Yeah.
Hence the birth of Science Play Kids.
Yeah.
My third child, effectively.
Right.
To ensure that in school science is an exciting and accessible topic.
Yeah. And I've seen some of your videos where you've got like little robots
Doing stuff.
walking around, chasing a line.
Yeah.
Start, finish points, all that sort of stuff. Some pretty funny. And also, like one day I saw something, you were just flicking something into a wall.
It's all about throwing stuff around, making a heap
was
of
that an
mess.
experiment or was
Yes,
that
it was
just
an experiment.
some downtime?
It's always experiment. No, that's experiments. That's it. You've got to put the play back in. I think that's a thing. And I think at the moment, the science curriculum in education is facts and abstract concepts that nobody really relates to. And I say to kids, who does science every day? And most of them don't put their hands up. And I say, well, do you have a body? Do you breathe? Do you play? Do you move? Do you do all that stuff? And they say yes. And I was like, there is science in every single one of those aspects.
Yeah.
You just don't realise.
Yeah.
And so it's finding the science in the everyday and showing the kids that they are already scientists. They are already doing that, and helping the teachers see those opportunities and use those as conversations and science experiences rather than something that means nothing to a child.
Yeah.
Completely unrelatable, completely intimidating.
If it's like purely academic.
Yeah.
I have to say, as a science dropout, I'm embarrassed sitting here with a PhD candidate. But I was a science dropout because in first year, so I did a course which it's got a really fancy title.
Not like just science.
It wasn't called science. No, this one had a really cool title. It was the a Bachelor of Applied Science in Optoelectronics.
Ooh.
Sounds fancy, doesn't it?
It does.
And what it really was sharks with frickin' laser beams, except we didn't have sharks. There was no sharks.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
You had laser beams?
We had laser beams. Yeah, we had some cool lasers.
Yeah.
And in first year of the science degree, it was very practical.
Yes.
Obvious to understand science. So it was tensions and it was all your like Suvat equations. Also, it's the stuff that is relates to real world things that you can see and feel and touch.
Yes.
And that made a lot of sense to me.
Yes.
And then by second year, it became very academic.
Yes.
And where
theoretical.
and so the problem was symbols and words on a page, and the solution was symbols and words on a page, and I found that terribly unmotivating.
Yes. Inaccessible.
Well, yeah, and because I was living away from home as a uni student, I became unmotivated.
Hanging at the pub more than at the uni.
Well, they
put the pub in uni, which makes it really hard.
I know
That's what I struggle
don't
with.
encourage for a learning facility. They don't encourage the learning. So anyway, but that was my experience. Was that as soon as it became too academic, and it didn't suit me to learn in that way.
Yes.
And so therefore I lost interest and I changed and I did something else. Can we talk about for a little bit? I want to just rewind a little bit. How did you? What we should say is Science Play Kids is all about championing learning.
Yes.
For neurodivergence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dr Loz. I'm autistic and have ADHD.
Yeah, and we should have said that right at the
strap in
start.
for a ride because we're going to go on all sorts of tangents with my brain.
Yeah.
But
So
yes,
let's touch on
absolutely.
that. Autistic.
Yes.
And ADHD.
Yes. And I'm sure many other things.
And you've known this your whole life.
Hell no.
No.
Hell no. I reckon last 5 years. Maybe, yes, last 5 years.
Yeah.
And that came about by wondering why my, 3 or 4 year old son at the time was doing things differently.
Yep.
And then I went down the wormhole of, neurodivergent. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? And, wow, what a eye-opening, life-changing experience knowing that is.
Yeah.
Power. I think that's the thing. Knowledge is power. If you can understand why your brain goes where it goes,
Yep.
you can do things with that.
Yes.
And it's very validating to understand. But also, how much more can I access information and learning now that I know how I have to do it?
Yeah. It's like learning
God, if we knew.
which key to use
Correct.
to unlock the vault of learning.
Yes, amazing. And
You
that's,
can use that, by the way.
Yeah, I like that. Can I steal that?
Yeah.
Right, thanks. Nice.
I reel off a lot of quotes, so you can use any of
Nice.
them. So,
as long as I credit you.
well, you don't even have to do that because I've got so many. But the thing with knowing about neurodivergence and whether or not you are neurodivergent
yes.
means that you can then teach the way they learn.
Yes.
Which means that you can now, with your STEM and Science Play Kids programs, you can teach these kids the way they learn.
Yes.
And then bring in some kids into science
Yes.
that would otherwise have been left behind.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think the STEM is one of the, or science is one of the most inaccessible curriculums because it's so academic and information heavy that often you read or write or you do some fancy pants experiment with equipment that's intimidating. That's what we call STEM. Or it's a demonstration that the teacher does and all the kids have to sit and watch. And, I can't learn from sitting and watching. I got to do the thing, do the thing.
Get the hands in there.
Yeah. Or and not reading a book either. Like
Yeah.
So I think because that's traditionally how we teach science, it's just not accessible for most brains.
Yeah.
And, not most, but a lot of brains. We think, 30 or 40% of every classroom is neurodivergent, which means there are a lot of different ways of learning in any given classroom. And so for a teacher to manage that, to teach to that, to understand that, that's huge. I don't envy teachers one bit. I think they have the hardest job in the world with the least credit, the least recognition, and the least support. So then I'm trying to help that.
And 30 to 40%
Huge.
is a huge amount.
Huge. It's nearly half.
And we are making leaps and bounds at the moment.
Slowly.
I feel like at the moment there's been a real surge towards acknowledging
Yes.
neurodivergence, which
Yes.
I think is fantastic.
Yes.
If there really is 30 to 40% of the students,
Yes.
then effectively, it's such a big portion of the classroom that there really needs to be adaptation
Huge.
in the learning.
Huge.
Right?
Yes.
And then I think my gut feeling is that you would have if you were able to teach the way the kids learn,
Yes.
you're going to have a reduced rate of people like kids who bully other
Yes.
kids,
Yes.
kids who act out in class,
Yes.
because they can get the right stimulation.
Well, it's giving them confidence to feel like they're a good learner and a good person by helping them access what you're trying to teach, rather than saying this is the way we do it. And if you don't understand that, you feel like a dumb person, right? And you feel like school's not for you and you're just crap. And that's probably feeding in other places of your life too.
Yep.
Like as an ADHD, I was always too much and too loud, and so you have to cull that too. And so you just kind of become this smaller version of yourself than you should be, and you don't have confidence in anything. Whereas if we can say, you can showcase your knowledge however you like, and here's another way that you can get to this information, and we don't have to read this paragraph, but you could listen to it in an audiobook, or here's some visuals for that, or let's do this thing together rather than talk about it. And then lots of the students can walk away from that being like, oh, I can, and this is good, and I enjoy it.
Yep. And find some joy
Yep.
in the learning.
Yep. Ownership, confidence, all the stuff you need to be a learner.
And be amazed at the amazing things in the world that's out there. Yeah. I really admire the way you've taken it on board, because in multiple things that we've been to now, you now are quite proud in the way that you announce neurodivergence.
Oh.
Yeah. And I
It's
know
not a
that
deficit.
that's had a lot of impact on even the students that you have as well.
Yeah.
I know a story, but I'd rather you told it, of a time that a child approached you after a lesson that you did. A child that was diagnosed with ADHD.
Yes.
You was telling once. Do you remember this story? You
No.
probably have got lots of them. You told me once about a child that came up to you and whispered to you.
Oh, yes. That I'm autistic too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were autistic.
Yes.
Yep. And they whispered it to you, and they, like, as if it was their little secret,
Yeah.
and they couldn't tell anyone.
Yeah, I've got an autistic brain. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But because you had
Shouted it from the
shouted
rooftop.
from the start, they all of a sudden were like, oh, wow, there's a functioning adult person.
Yes, who sends stuff into space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I do it every time I have an audience, every time I have a class, every time I have teachers in front of me, every time I have parents. This is me and this is rad, it's definitely hard. Everyday life is harder because of it, but it's once I understand, now I know how my brain works, I just work with it, and I think that's doable.
Yeah.
And knowing that and understanding it can change your approach to things.
Yeah, and it can take the pressure off.
Oh, huge.
Because you
No wonder I couldn't do that for so many years.
And why another reason why I find you inspiring, and a lot of people around me at the moment, is because they're going on this journey as well. And personally, I feel like I'm going on this journey. It's not something I would have ever thought about in the past.
Yeah.
But there's always been a bunch of elements that I've been careful not to expose too much. We've joked about this, oversharing.
Oh, oversharing. Love and oversharing.
For me, it's remembering weird things.
Yes.
That can make me look like a real weirdo.
Like a stalker or something.
Like a stalker. But I can't help it. I just these are just things that I retain.
But why does society say that remembering that kind of stuff makes you weird? Like we've really got to pull society in line.
Yeah.
The reason that so many of us feel that being neurodivergent is a deficit and a problem is because society views it as one, because it's not normal. But what is normal, right? Like if we're talking 40%,
Yeah.
then it's almost it's almost half,
Yeah,
right? This
yeah.
is almost the normal.
Well, I've got a theory.
Change
that,
views,
Yeah,
people.
I agree 100%. Yeah, you people.
Come on.
Just general.
Celebrate difference. It's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
how boring. We'd all be robots if we were all the same.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
And if you make... Sorry, go. See,
No,
this is my ADHD
no.
interrupty.
No, I'm enjoying the vigorous conversation. I think, and this is the philosophical me coming out, we call it neurodivergence now.
Yes.
I don't think
As
we
the
will.
whole umbrella.
But I don't think we will forever, because if the 40%
yes.
of people are neurodivergent,
Yes.
then how
Yes,
are
it
you
wouldn't be
actually divergent?
Well,
You're just neuro.
is society ever going to come to the table, though? That's the thing. I suppose it's not normal, but it's what society deems as the majority.
Yeah.
So if we always kind of sit at that 40%, then perhaps it will stay as neurodivergent.
Sure.
But I think the other beautiful thing is, too, you don't have to define what part of neurodivergent you are. Like, that is ADHD, autistic, OCD, Tourette's, cerebral palsy, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, anxiety. Like, there's about 50 under
Right.
that neurodivergent umbrella.
Yep.
So, and then there is non-neurodivergent. So together we are neurodiverse as a society.
Yeah.
And I think just knowing that you can be neurodivergent to some extent, you don't have to label what it is, but understand that your brain gets to that point a different way is not the wrong way. It's
Yeah.
just a different way.
It's just a different way.
That's it.
Yeah.
Full stop.
And that's such an important lesson, I think.
Huge.
It's an important lesson for employers,
Yep.
teachers,
Yep.
anyone who manages people,
Yep.
to understand that if you can just work out, I mean, this is management
Yep.
101, getting
Yep.
the best out of individuals.
Yep.
So if you can just work out the best way to work with that individual
Yes.
to achieve, then you're going to achieve a lot more.
Yes. Majority of my staff are also neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. And that's the thing. Like, if you can, I feel like we used to try and build these teams of people of, I don't know, neurotypical people. Whereas if you can have, you know, this person that's excellent at this person that's great at details, this person that's a bigger picture, this person that says the things that they shouldn't say, but, you know, brings things to the table, and this person that's really creative, and you put that together in a team, God, you're like destined for success,
Yeah.
right? Because you've got somebody that brings a different something to it.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the best.
Well, when you think about people in history who have done amazing things, you just have to say,
Yeah.
like,
It's
because you
there.
can't, yeah, well, there's got to be something, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because it makes them different
Yes.
to the average, which allowed them to
Yes.
succeed in a big way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have more neurodivergent people than we used to have. We just are
just know about
talking
it.
about it. Correct. We understand a bit more.
It's not, there's something new in the water.
No.
But-
It's a new conversation.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are still very unsure of it. And teachers, you know, like, we don't know this, we didn't know this. No, should you? Nor should you.
Yeah.
This is a new conversation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's happening. So,
Yeah.
jump on
And you're
board.
saying that quite regularly the teachers you work with are not really aware.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Because again, it's new. It depends how long they've been teaching. But the thing is, once you see that in your classroom and you can see that child's a sensory seeker. So, you know, if we do this activity with manipulatables or we do it outside, you are filling those needs for that child, and the disruptive behaviour is no longer there. So
Yeah.
teaching a classroom, you get more time learning and less time managing behaviour, because you're meeting the needs of those brains so that they can focus on the task and do the thing that they're trying to do to do the learning.
G'day, it's Andy here from In Other Good News, and I hope you're enjoying today's episode of the Good People podcast. Do you know back in 2020 we created Grindhog Day, our very own line of coffee beans that supports the amazing charity Food Bank. Every single purchase of Grindhog Day coffee puts food on the table for vulnerable Australians. But we knew that we couldn't just create any old coffee. We had to create something that would rival the best that is out there. So we've got a blend from Colombia, Brazil and Papua New Guinea, and it's something that I think is purely magical. But you don't have to take my word for it. Why don't we ask these couple of geezers?
How's your coffee, Sonny? Delicious. I can really taste the premium beans. Such a generous aftertaste. you old enough to drink coffee?
I have a moustache, don't I?
Since we launched Grindhog Day Coffee back in 2020, we have created over 35,000 meals through the food bank system. So if you want to do something good just by drinking good coffee, head to iogn.com.au and order yours today. We've got free and fast delivery for those who live in the inner western Melbourne, plus we ship Australia-wide. And if you love it, we've got a subscription, so your coffee will turn up on time, every time, and you'll never run out. Amazing. Head to iogn.com.au and order yours today. Now, let's get back to the episode.
You are a self-confessed Steminist.
Yes.
Now, this is a new
cool word, isn't it?
Do you want to explain what a Steminist is?
Steminist, it's been around for a little while.
Has it?
Yeah. Oh, a couple of years. But somebody that supports girls or women in science.
Right.
If they love it, if they're, like it could be your primary school kid that's a little science nerd,
Yep.
or your person that's doing their science career and is a research scientist or whatever.
And so
Supporting that.
reflecting on your past, your academic past as a researcher, how that all changed with the introduction of having children.
Yes.
Is this, do you think, why you feel like there is the need for so much support for women in science?
Absolutely. And it's just really silly things like my alias is Dr Loz, and there are so many women that have done a PhD and have a doctorate but do not ever put the doctor in front of their name, but all the men do. Just things like stand up, we got this, we achieved. It probably was harder because we had to juggle all the stuff.
Yep.
But just need a little more support, a little more cheering from the sidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it is harder.
So recently you worked with a mutual friend of ours, Jess McDonald,
Yes.
on. Now, it's not an accident. I am wearing this T-shirt today. I wanted to wear this one because I think this is fantastic. It's a bit hard to see.
It is very
so
cool.
for those who are just tuning in, listening, I'm wearing a T-shirt that has what looks like a periodic table. But instead, Loz, what's it covered in?
Wonderful Australian women of science that are kicking goals or have kicked goals, or you should know their names.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's, it's okay if you don't, but you should
can learn them.
Yeah, that's right.
And
So this is set out like a periodical table.
Yeah.
And you work with High Teas Australia, so Jess from
Yes.
High Teas, to help put this together
Yes.
to celebrate these amazing Australian women in science.
yeah.
Who's on here?
There's
'Cause
a couple of champions.
Yeah.
Misty Jenkins.
Yep.
She is an absolute gun.
What does Misty do?
Misty was one of the first Indigenous women to do, I think it was a postdoc at Cambridge or Oxford or something overseas.
Yep.
And now she has set up sort of a foundation so that other people can do the same. Other Indigenous Australians can go overseas and get that experience and research over there.
Yep.
And now she's one of the bigwigs doing some of the leadership stuff at Olivia Newton-John Cancer Centre.
Oh, wow.
You've got Anika Molesworth, she's champion. Emma Johnson, she's champion. Just some really cool women. And I think the thing is, right, you go into a classroom of kids and say, tell me the name of a scientist, and they'll give you a dead American man or something.
Yeah.
And nobody knows about all these amazing people we have in Australia,
Yes.
let alone the amazing women we have in Australia
Yeah.
that are champion science.
Yes.
So, yes. And so because I've done some of that before, Jess said, come help me think of some people.
Yeah.
And,
And then you just
there's
knowledge
lots.
bombed her.
Yeah, we did. It was fun.
It was a science bomb.
Yeah.
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 And you're also wearing, for those who are
Oh, yeah.
listening, you're wearing a T-shirt that says Amazing Australian Women of Science.
Yeah.
So we are full science today.
Yeah, nerds.
And
Nerds
on
unite.
your T-shirt, that's an older model.
It is an older model. It's something I did a few years ago when I had to go to the dinner for the 100 Women of Influence.
Oh, yes.
I got asked Chris, who worked with me, Chris Rockley, she's a science illustrator, to draw some cool Australian women,
Yep.
scientists. And then I went over to Handmaker's Factory and asked Nicola if I could use her equipment, and I screen printed a heap of material.
You made some fabric.
I
Yeah.
did. Screen printed it with these amazing Australian women, and then she sewed it into a dress that was kind of like a ball gown. It was pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
And then I wore it to the dinner, and lots of everybody asked me about it, and some of them knew some of the people, and I was like, oh my gosh, can you say they're my hero? Can you tell them they're my hero?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a dress covered in figures of Australian women in science.
Yep.
And you can see this on the internet. If you search,
Yes.
all you have to do is Google Dr Loz and
Steminist dress. I think it comes up.
Yep. Did you get asked who are you wearing today?
I'm wearing Dr Loz by no, but I did. But then I had to list all the names.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was fun.
Yeah.
So then I got to do it. It was a conversation starter, which is the whole point. Same with I'm wearing the earrings. If you can't see them.
Oh yes, tell me about your earrings. Yes,
these are uteruses inside a heart, and I have ones that are lobes of the breast as well.
Yep.
And again, they're a conversation piece. So if I go out, people stop me and say, "Is that a uterus on your ears?" And I say, "Yes, it is. Let me tell you about that." When you buy these, part of the money raised goes to gynecological cancer research. And so I made the earrings to do that because I miss researching that stuff. And so I still want to give back. And so that's it. But everybody asks, everybody.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, is that a ram on your head? I'm like, no, that's ovary.
Yeah.
Ovaries in a uterus, I understand.
Yeah.
But it starts a conversation
Yeah.
all the time, every time I go out.
It is bold.
It's fabulous.
Yeah. I noticed them on the way in, actually. And I was going to say, is that a ram?
There you go.
Yeah, no. I knew what it was because I've seen
glad.
it before. What was the other earrings? You had...
I've got the breasts.
Yes.
And that's, again, same. There's lobes of the breast and there's front. That you can check them all out on the website. But, yes, that money raised from selling them goes to breast cancer research too.
Is this just on your website?
Yeah.
scienceplaykids.com.au?
Yes. And we also sell them at the QV Women's Shop in the city at the QV Women's Centre, which is very cool.
That's fantastic.
And a few other places. Far-Fetched Designs in Seddon has them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, they're pretty special. And, yeah, giving back to the old passion. Because I didn't want to let go of it. It was a hard choice to leave research. I did love it very much, but I felt like this area needed a lot of support. All those poor teachers doing the hard slog.
Yeah. And they
with no help,
I think just touching back on some of the other things, like with your Science Play Kids, your future, well, we were talking about this before, where you want to take Science Play Kids. And you're talking about now, I'm going to get the sentence wrong, but it's around championing the accessibility.
Yes, it's about making the education system more accessible for neurodivergent learners.
Yep.
But in that, making STEM or science education more accessible for neurodivergent learners.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of kids doing homeschool.
Yes, because the education system's not designed for people that move around too much or yell out or make noise or, need those buckets filled in the standard classroom. It used to be active learning is sitting facing forward, eyes up front, legs together,
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I can't sit still.
No,
Yeah.
I walk around while I read a book. So does my daughter. I need to be touching things and moving and doing all the stuff that can be disruptive in a classroom setting. So it's just channeling that, recognizing it, understanding why, and then saying, okay, cool, here's something you can do so that you can focus on your learning and for teachers to see that it's not kids trying to be disruptive. They just need help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just recognition of
understanding what it is. That's it.
That's all it is because then you can change. So I've looked back, I've reflected. So like I say, this is a journey for me, because I'm seeing so many people around me who are being diagnosed or whatever. So, and I was telling you that once you watch a video on Facebook or Instagram or something on ADHD, then you get them all. Yeah. And then they just keep coming. And then I keep looking at all of the things that people are describing. And I'm going, oh my God,
me too.
That's me as well.
Yes.
That's me as well. That's me. So many things are coming up. And then I reflect on my school reports. And my school reports, as a kid, you sort of take it for granted what's written in them. But mine it's almost carbon copy every year. Stamp, stamp, stamp. Andrew does not focus in class. He does not concentrate in class. Andrew does not. He needs to pay more attention to his own work and less on other people's. Like all these things along the way, which now you would go...
Yeah, ADHD.
Probably.
Yeah.
And had... Like I think about my motivation towards... achieving in year 12 was important, but it was never facilitated in a way that would probably have suited me.
Yes.
And so I wonder, it does make me wonder, like
What could?
Well, I'm not so worried about what could, because it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you can't change. You can only get to where you are by where you've been.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here with you.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, I don't know where I would be. But the point is more so you sort of go, what was possible just had I had different people around helping, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And then I think about why I didn't continue on with my science degree. And it was because I was at uni living self-contained, eating poorly, sleeping poorly, partying a lot, getting distracted by social events. And the motivation to just sit down and study just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't learning for something. And interesting was that I wasn't doing that well in second year, and that's when I pulled the pin.
Yeah.
But I went and picked something that I did want to do.
Yes.
And I went and did audio engineering.
Yes.
And I walked away with that with a high distinction.
Yeah.
It was because I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
It somehow suited my learning.
Yeah.
Like it's a juxtapose.
Yeah.
It's an amazing difference.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of people, like when we don't want to be too general, because neurodivergence can be really debilitating.
Yes.
For some people.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for others, it's almost a superpower ready to be unlocked.
Yes. It's hard. I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of arguments around labeling it as a superpower, and there's a lot of arguments, moving away from saying disorder and all of that kind of stuff. It's also, like you were saying, you start to recognize that there's so many aspects in your life when you start to watch those videos and be like, that's me, that's me, that's me.
Yep.
And then a lot of people say, oh, everybody's a little bit like that. Everyone's a little bit neurodivergent. And that's where you've got to pull people up and say, well, you might experience that, once a day or twice a day. Those things happen. You lose your keys as well. But this is like every minute of every day. There is something in that makes the tasks a little bit harder if you try and do the way society expects you to do them.
Yeah.
So once we move away from that, and that's the school system too, right? Like you were saying uni was hard because you weren't well slept and you weren't well fed and stuff. In primary school, a lot of kids don't have breakfast, right? And we don't have breaks. And then we're expecting kids to regulate their own need for water intake. And when they get out to lunch and recess, to sit down and eat their food rather than be like, oh my God, I've got, 40 minutes to play. I'm going to play and play and play. And then the bell's going to go and I haven't eaten.
Yep.
So there's nobody helping them with that, and the assumption that children should be able to do that by themselves when us as adults can't even do that.
Yep.
Yeah, like I know so many people that don't drink water and like, oh, I should drink my water. And have you had lunch? It's 5 o'clock. Oh no, and I didn't have skip breakfast, right? And we do it and we choose still. These kids don't even know about it, and that's a lot of these kids have poor interoception, which is feeling the cold. The kid that's always wearing shorts and it's 4 degrees outside, or a jumper when it's 30 degrees. They don't know when they're hungry. They don't know when they're thirsty. And they don't know that they need to go to the toilet until 1 second before. So teachers or just anyone that says you should have eaten at lunchtime, or when you come back in and you ask to go to the toilet 5 minutes after and teachers say you should have gone at lunchtime, man, I didn't know I needed to go then.
Yeah.
And when I have these conversations with parents, they're like, oh my God, yes, they do wait too long to go to the toilet, and they don't know when they're hungry. And then we expect these kids to thrive in an academic setting and concentrate without having done any of this stuff. So I just say to teachers, it's not a big thing. Just remind them, set something that every 20 minutes you say, does anyone need a drink? Toilet break, absolutely. Just help them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's what...
By acknowledging that there is this variation in brains and there are different ways to do stuff, and just seeing that.
And this is what Science Play Kids, you hope to be more involved in championing this moving forward.
Yeah. Helping teachers recognise those kids and giving them tools to include them in learning and to make it more accessible. And not big stuff, don't change your whole classroom setting. Just do 5 minutes of that activity outside, or, do the 30-second dance break. And yes, it might take you a minute on either side to get them back to it, but then you'll have a good 10 minutes of focus again where you wouldn't have.
Where you wouldn't have had it, right, when you just try and tough it out, push through.
Yeah, just makes a world of difference. And doing science helps because it's so hands-on and you get to touch the things, and there's so much sensory input.
Yeah.
in science education. That
We're learning too. So that we were talking before about different ways of thinking. And I'm going to butcher this story, but there was a particular lady with autism in the United States.
who was autistic.
Yes. And she...
Don't have autism. I am autistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me there,
okay.
because that's important.
It is. Not everyone loves it, but it's a new thing that's happening too. Of identifying as. You can't separate... I can't take the autism away.
That's right. You can't have a tablet and not be autistic anymore. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
So there was a lady who is probably autistic.
Yes.
And she solved a problem with livestock that was thought unsolvable.
Amazing.
Because she just looked at it differently.
You mean Temple Grandin?
Now, this is where I'm going to butcher it, but the story stuck with me because it was a great example of people trying to...
I think it's Temple Grandin.
Yeah, and has now done amazing things since.
Yes. And there's books about her and stuff?
Quite likely,
Yes.
So,
yes.
Again, I promised to butcher the story. But I was inspired by it at the moment when I read it, thinking, well, that's exactly what it is, isn't it?
It's thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I feel like so many, this is what I'm saying, if you add in, if you have neurodivergent people on your team, they will think differently to all the things that have already been thought that you can't find a solution for.
Yeah.
Right. So that different thinking brings a completely different angle and solutions can be found that nobody else has come up with.
Yeah.
Especially because often neurodivergent people aren't given the opportunity to be in the teams, in the businesses doing all the stuff because it's harder and, being on time. So that's, I've got the people working for me and they're absolute champions, but they don't have to come in at a particular time and, they can wear their earphones if they need to and whatever. Like you do you. And they are the most incredible, efficient geniuses because they get to do it the way they need to do it.
Yeah. And some societal structures
ridiculous.
Are just you spend so much of your mental energy conforming to the societal structures that you don't need. And then you can't flourish.
Yeah.
I can completely relate to that. There's so much of that rings true for me as well. Any exciting projects coming up?
Yeah, a few. Some I can't talk about yet. But yes, quite a few. This year's going to be big. We've got a lot more funding to support heaps more schools, which is incredible because we haven't. It's a hard slog. So schools don't get much funding to do these things, and teachers are just expected to do it.
And poor old teachers are under the pump.
Yeah, right. With everything.
Yeah.
Here, babysit my kids for an entire day and teach them everything they need to know to be a future adult and succeed.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And do it without extra time and without extra funding and extra training.
Yeah.
Go forth. And then cop all the slack from all the parents that aren't impressed with the way it's going.
Yeah.
So we try and bring programs to schools for free that allow them to engage all of their learners in sort of STEM-based sessions.
Yep.
And so we get more and more funding from different bodies to do that.
Yep.
And then we are doing the PD for the teachers.
Yeah.
And so that's ramping up heaps. And just teachers keep walking out going, oh, God, the knowledge of sort of being able to see the students now and understanding how they're learning differently and why they are and helping – being able to help them flourish in that.
Yeah.
Just game changer. Absolute game changer.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you're blinding them with science.
Blinded by the science. Oh, God.
That's the wrong
song. Can you edit that out?
That's Blinded by the Light.
I know, but...
No, that's in.
Backpedal.
No, it's She Blinded Me with Science. 80s classic.
No.
You don't have to look
Can
it
you
up.
sing it?
No.
Please.
She blinded me with science.
You did it. I didn't think you would actually.
Yeah. So
Again?
I'm very shy though. I'm a shy person.
You are not.
So I can't do much singing. But do you know what? I'm excited for you because I know a little bit about the secret project. So I'm excited for you for this year.
You might be part of the secret project.
And you've really, do you know what? From doing this podcast, like I've known you for a while. Actually, one time when I think Science Play Kids was fairly new, I somehow, around ways, ended up loaning some of your lab coat jackets for little people. And
I don't even know if I remember.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
It's years ago, right? And then I put on a science party for my small child.
Oh, yes.
And I adopted the role of a character called Dr Leadbrains. And I wore a purple wig, and I was in character for
Do you have
this whole...
photos? Can we get some photos of this, please?
I'll try and find a photo.
Excellent.
And I think I was adopting Dr. Nick off The Simpsons.
Oh,
hello
headphones
everybody.
attached. Yeah, I do that at work.
I'm
Let's
Dr.
go.
Leadbrains,
Yeah.
and the kids are going, "Is that you, Dad?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No."
Because I don't. The
Yeah.
Simpsons jokes lost on them.
Yeah, which is good
Wrong
because
generation.
I was stealing it.
Content. No, that's fine.
But yes, so I actually early in the day I tried to do a science party, and do you know what? It was hard because
Really hard.
volcanoes.
No, with
We
the
did volcanoes, and
What's the definition of science for anyone that's not a scientist?
I know.
Volcanoes.
Get some vinegar.
No.
Get some bicarb.
And teachers want to do that in the classroom. I'm like, it's messy. Don't do it. There
Yeah,
is
it
so
is
many
messy.
other fabulous things you can do.
Yeah.
That is not pour the thing into the thing and then it does. And then what? Then you've spent
And then
half
you-
an hour setting up and you spend half an hour cleaning up for 30 seconds of good.
Yeah, get amazed,
Yeah.
and then.
But then what?
And then what?
Yeah, don't do
How
that.
do you use it?
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the last time Dr. Leadbrains came out. It
Thank
was
goodness.
I still remember it, but then I tend to remember
The kids
things.
might
as I-
remember. Yeah.
I do have some photos.
Negative.
It is funny. So I'm going to leave the teaching of the science to you.
Thank you.
Unless, of course, a well-paid gig comes along where you need Dr. Leadbrains to
I don't
make
think
an
so.
appearance.
I don't think so.
But for now, good luck. Go forth and teach the stems.
Live long and prosper, as
Oh,
my
wow.
5-year-old says.
Crossbar?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Oh.
But he's adamant that it's prosper, not prosper.
Crossbar.
Sure.
Crossbar, yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Go forth and crossbar.
Yes.
And I wish you all the best for this year.
Thank you very much.
I'm excited for you, and thank you so much for coming on the Good
Thanks
People
for
podcast.
having me.
I'm
This is
really
excellent.
sorry we couldn't get deeper into science.
Yet.
Yeah.
We can
Well,
go
today,
again.
we can come back another time. Maybe when your program is kicking goals,
yeah.
and come back and talk about it another time.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, thank you, Dr. Loz.
Thank you.
This is the Good People podcast. My name is Andy, and we'll see you next time.
Well, it's a tip of the cap, it's a pat on the back, it's a smile from ear to ear. They're the good people from round here. They're the good people from round here. Come on, let me introduce you to a few.